I'm going to call the environment. Oh, is that her?
If we're starting, then we have to push the button. So,
okay.
Mr. Albertalli,
Well,
want to push the button?
let me know when you've pushed the button.
Will do.
I have pushed the button.
Okay. This is the September 16th, 2020 meeting of Mountain View's Environmental Planning Commission. It is 7:03.
Hold on. It doesn't look like
it's not working.
Hold on just one second. Let me try. Okay, we're good to go.
All right. Okay. This is the September 16th, 2020 meeting of Mountain View's Environmental Planning Commission. It is now 7:04 p.m. and I will call the meeting to order. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with State of California Executive Order N-2920, dated March 17th, 2020. All members of the EPC are participating in this meeting by video conference with no physical meeting location. Members of the public wishing to observe the meeting live may do so at mountainview.legistar.com, on YouTube at mountainview.gov/YouTube, and on Comcast channel 26. As noted on the meeting agenda, members of the public may provide oral public comments during the public comment period for an item by signing up at mountainview.gov/EPC_speakers. Emails and voicemail messages received by 5 p.m. today were forwarded to the EPC. All votes will be taken by roll call vote. Now I will ask EPC clerk to proceed with the roll call.
Right.
So who's going to do that?
So, Commissioner Capriles.
Here.
Commissioner Haymeyer.
Here.
Commissioner Lowe.
Here.
Commissioner Schmiesing.
Here.
Commissioner Yin. Commissioner Yin.
She's not here.
Vice Chair Cranston.
Here.
And Chair Cox.
Here.
Okay. All commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Yin, who is absent.
All right. Thank you, Saroush Abu Talabi. I'm not sure I said that right. Anyway, let's move on to item number 3, the minutes. We will have first talk about the Environmental Planning Commission meeting minutes of October 12th, 2019. Is there any discussion of the minutes by the commission?
Chair Cox, may I ask a question?
Sure.
So are we approving the minutes for the 12th or the 2nd?
So this is for the 12th. What happened with this one was there were 4 commissioners in attendance.
That was the trip to Hercules, correct?
Exactly.
So the meeting minutes that were attached were for October 2nd.
Oh.
Oh.
And I'm sorry I didn't call attention to this sooner. I was looking at it so quick, like the 2nd and the 12th were so close, and I know I wasn't present. So I hope that hasn't foiled this again.
Maybe we'll need to bring it back again.
We may need to bring it back again. Why don't we table this one and we'll bring it back again?
All right, so let's, do we have to have a vote to do that, or do we just go ahead with it?
And I apologize to the staff. I thought I read it twice. I saw the 2nd and then the 12th, and it was my fault for not calling attention to it sooner.
So, I mean, I think, if you can just do if you're going to table it as that's a motion, if you can just take a vote on that, that would be helpful just for the record.
Fine. Okay, so do I have somebody who will put the motion out for our vote?
Sure. I'm. Let me raise my hand.
Okay, Commissioner Haymeyer.
I raised to table the approving of the October 12th minutes to a future meeting date given the error in attachments to the September 16th meeting packet.
All right. Do we have a second?
I
see
second.
Commissioner Capriles. Okay. All right. We're going to do all votes by roll call vote. It said so. Sarush, would you please call the vote?
Yes. Commissioner Capriles,
Yes.
Commissioner Haymeyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Lowe,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmiesing,
Aye.
Commissioner Yin is absent. Vice Chair Cranston.
Aye.
Chair Cox.
Aye.
Okay. The motion carries 6 votes to 1 with Commissioner Yin being absent. Motion passes.
All right. Okay, so we will now move on to item number 4. Thank you, Sarush. Oral communications from the public. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the EPC on any matter not on the agenda. Speakers are allowed to speak on any topic for up to 3 minutes during this section. State law prohibits the commission from acting on non-agenda items. Would any member of the public on the line like to provide comment on non-agenda items? If so, please click the raise hand button on Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves with *6. The EPC clerk will now start the timer and let you know when your time is up if there is anyone to speak. Is there anyone to speak?
At this point, I don't see any of our any of our attendees having their hand raised. Chair Cox.
Okay, all right. So not seeing none, we will retire item number 4 and move on to item number 5, which is a public hearing. We have 2 of these. We'll start with 5.1, zoning ordinance amendments to update accessory dwelling unit regulations to align with new state regulations. I believe there will be a staff presentation from Planner Brittany Whitehill and Planning Manager and Zoning Administrator Stephanie Williams.
If you could just give Brittany 1 minute, I think she just contacted me and said she's having some technical difficulties. So she'll be right back. Not sure how long. We could possibly take the items out of order if you wanted and do 5.2 instead.
What do you think, Eric? Maybe give her another minute or so. I mean, how long does it usually take for people to come back?
Sure. Well, I mean, it depends, if she's having, internet issues or something, that could be a while. So,
all right. Maybe it would be better to do 5.2 first then. Okay, so do we need to have a vote on interchanging the order? Nicole?
I'm trying to remember if that's left up to the chair, or if that's the chair with kind of a
Okay.
majority of the body.
We've taken a vote.
There's a
and passed,
consensus.
so. Okay. The only thing I'm worried about is by the time we take the vote, she might be back. Then we'll have to vote again. But let's just go. And just for the record, since we have done this in the past, let's just take the vote now and see. So, I mean, is there a commissioner who would make the motion, please? Raise your hand. I see Commissioner Schmeezing.
I move to switch the number of the items, putting 5.2 before 5.1. Oh.
She's back.
Never mind.
But I don't see her. Oh, there she is. Okay. All right. We didn't have a chance to finish interchanging the items by the time Brittany got back, so I guess we can go ahead with 5.1.
Sorry about that, you guys. My internet decided to crash at a very inconvenient time. But go ahead. All right, thank you. Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Brittany Whitehill, and I am joined tonight by Planning Manager and Zoning Administrator Stephanie Williams. The item in front of you consists of zoning ordinance amendments pertaining to accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units. In fall of 2019, the governor signed into law several bills amending multiple government code sections related to accessory dwelling units, ADUs, and junior accessory dwelling units, JADUs. This legislation became effective January 1st, 2020. In spring of 2020, staff brought proposed zoning ordinance amendments related to ADUs to the EPC for recommendation and to City Council for adoption. Before the second reading of the proposed ordinance, the item was pulled from the agenda for further evaluation. The updated version of the proposed ADU regulations has been further refined and reflects the latest information and interpretations available from the California Department of Housing and Community Development on the numerous housing bills adopted earlier this year. Zoning ordinance amendments are required to be reviewed by the Santa Clara County Airport Land Use Commission, the ALUC. On September 9th of 2020, staff presented the draft ADU code amendments to the ALUC. The ALUC determined that the proposed amendments are consistent with the comprehensive land use plan for Moffett Federal Airfield. Since this item was last reviewed by the EPC, staff has made several revisions. A definition section has been added to define terms specific to ADUs and JADUs. For the single-family ADU standards, staff has added a requirement that the front setback of an ADU be consistent with the front setback of the underlying zone, and eliminated the 10-foot separation requirement between ADUs and other structures, the 30% maximum rear yard coverage requirement, and the requirement for ADUs to be constructed in the same architectural style and with the same materials as the primary residence. For the JADU standards, staff has clarified that a JADU can be allowed within a single-family home on any residential site, as opposed to a single-family home in the R1 district only. Staff has removed the 800 square foot maximum for ADUs on sites with existing or proposed JADUs. This recommendation is in anticipation of new legislation that, if passed, will allow an ADU over 800 square feet on a single-family lot with a JADU. No substantive changes have been made to the ADU multifamily standards. However, staff has organized the single-family, multifamily, and JADU standards into separate tables for clarity. Staff has revised the proposed parking standards to clarify that no parking is required for an ADU with no bedrooms. Staff has revised the development standard exception section to clarify that any development standard can be waived to allow an 800 square foot ADU, and to clarify that height and setback standards do not apply to ADUs located in existing buildings. Lastly, staff has reorganized various standards related to ADUs and JADUs for clarity. In conclusion, staff recommends the EPC adopt a resolution recommending council approve the proposed code amendments. This concludes staff presentation, and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Planner Whitehill. We'll now take it back to the commission for questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand and I'll call on you. Still waiting. Okay, well then I'll ask a question. Let's see. I was just wondering, on page 3, it talks about the elimination of the recommendation for similar materials and architectural style. Was that a state mandate that be eliminated, or is that something that was just staff decided that was a good thing to have?
So that was not mandated by state to eliminate that. That was a choice that cities had to make.
Okay, and then what can you give the rationale for making that choice?
So in part it is to just remove any barrier to constructing an ADU. You know, it could be challenging to match an ADU's materials and architectural style to the existing house. So this is another way to sort of facilitate the production of ADUs.
Okay, and let's see. There was a statement on page 3 that I didn't quite understand. And I'm trying to understand, does it mean, it was in the section on multifamily ADUs. And I kind of took away from that if in a multifamily complex, if you add ADUs, does that mean that you can not add any more than 2 unattached ADUs to the complex? Or am I not reading that right?
So with a multifamily development, you can convert portions of the development to create interior ADUs, and that would be up to 25% of the primary residences. In addition to that,
Okay.
you can build 2 new detached ADUs.
I see. Okay, thank you for that clarification. And let's see, what else do I have? On the amnesty program, is the amnesty program in progress now?
We haven't received any inquiries about it to this point, and we haven't really been, I wouldn't say it's in progress now, but if someone wanted to move forward with that program, it's something that we could be implementing now.
Okay. Is there any cost to the city to have a program like that if no one takes advantage of it?
I don't believe there would be any cost.
Okay. And let's see. All right, those are my initial questions. Are there any other questions from the commission? Commissioner Haymeyer. Commissioner Haymeyer?
Sorry, my mouse froze for a second. Thank you so much, Brittany, for that great presentation. I have 2 general ADU questions. They won't influence what I vote on tonight, but I think it would be helpful just as context. Is there any trends? I know the last time this came before us in March, and before that, we had only seen, I would think it was under a dozen ADU applications. Has there been any general trend or uptick in the number of homeowners who are building these?
I believe
you can comment on.
Yeah, I believe in 2019 there was about 15 ADUs constructed, and I know just within the 7 months of 2020 we've had a substantial number of ADU applications. I can't give you a specific number. I can definitely look into that and report back, but I would say there's definitely an increase in ADU applications. We have also received a couple applications for ADUs in multifamily developments.
Interesting. And the other thing, maybe others on this commission get this too from your Google search history, but I keep receiving these ad notifications for prefab ADUs. Have any of those been part of those application pools that you've mentioned?
Yes, we have gotten some applications for prefab ADUs. I would say it's not the majority, but we do get some.
Okay, because that really, I think the restriction loosening on similar materials really allows for the prefabs to have more of a chance. So thank you. I appreciate that clarification.
Okay, Commissioner Lowe.
Just out of curiosity, if everybody qualifies for building an ADU, applies to build one, how much housing stock increase do you think there may be in our city?
That is a great question. I don't know. I would need to look into that. I'm not sure how readily available we have that information, but it would definitely be a substantial increase in the housing stock.
Thank you.
Let's see, anyone else with questions? All right, I have one follow-up question. Do you know where, can you tell us, let's put it that way, where the multifamily units are that are going to get new ADUs, and are they internal or external?
So I don't recall specific addresses, but I know that there have been a couple of older apartment complexes who have, they've submitted applications to convert a couple storage rooms and laundry rooms to ADUs.
Oh, okay, interesting.
They were in the R3 zone, I think. We received 2 or 3 of those applications.
Okay, and then another follow-up question. Before the regulations on ADUs started to become relaxed, it seemed like a lot of the ADUs that were being built in Mountain View were, I guess we would call them non-conforming or non-permitted ADUs. Are we seeing, it sounds like we're seeing more interest in having people come forward to the city and actually get permits for ADUs now that the regulations are being relaxed. Would you agree?
I would say so, yes.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Schmeezing.
Sorry, just one more general question. It looks like the section on short-term rentals was added in the interim, and there's specifications around which ADUs qualify as short-term rentals and which are prohibited from that. Would you mind just elaborating a little bit on the process of deciding which ADUs to include in that list and how that came about?
So the state law is actually very specific in terms of which ADUs can be rented as short-term rentals. So what we're proposing is just what is consistent with the state law, and it's quite restricted.
Okay, any other questions from the commission? I don't see any more hands, and so I think we need to ask for public input on this, right? So would any member of the public on the line like to provide comment on this item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves with *6. The EPC clerk will start the timer and let you know when your time is up. Are there any members of the public wishing to comment on this item? Sarush.
At this point, Chair Cox, I do not see any of our attendees with their hand raised.
Okay. All right, then I will close public comment on this item and bring it back to the EPC for deliberation and action. Would any commissioner like to offer some comment on this item? Commissioner Hainmeyer.
Great, thanks. As I alluded to before, I am in support of the staff recommendation. I think this is an important opportunity to facilitate the construction of more ADUs, particularly because it allows us to intensify land use in residential zones throughout the city in a palatable and accessible way. And also multifamily housing. I'm encouraged to hear that the trajectory is moving in the direction of more ADUs. We only have infill development, so this is a great way to intensify existing land use. And one piece I particularly like is that the state restrictions have relaxed the parking standards for garage conversions. I think that is often a barrier, and so I will be supporting the staff recommendation, and I'm happy to make a motion, but would love to hear what the other commissioners have to say.
Okay, Commissioner Capriles. Thank you, Commissioner Haymeyer.
And I agree. I think that it's good to see the relaxed approach to the ADUs. I think it's something that people have been holding back on because of the more restrictive requirements. So I think this makes a whole lot of sense, and appreciate the staff's effort to clarify all of that for us. Sometimes it's hard when things are moving forward from the state and then we have to kind of change gears. So I appreciate the staff's work in trying to clarify all that for us so we can move forward and have this ordinance in place so people will respond to it. And so glad to know that a number of people are already responding. So that's a really good sign that we can add those additional units in the city. So thanks for your good work, and I will be supporting this as well.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Capriles. Commissioner Schmiesing.
I just want to echo what my fellow commissioners have said. I'm definitely in support of this as a way of increasing the housing stock in the city, and the changes that staff have made since we first reviewed this, I think, are definitely steps in the right direction in terms of making it easier. And also just, I really appreciated the tables. The consolidation of information was really easy to digest for me, and definitely think that that will be helpful for people looking to construct an ADU in the future. So I will also be supporting this.
Mm-hmm. All right, other commissioners. Vice Chair Cranston.
It's law. I'll vote for it.
Oh, say it again. I didn't hear you.
It's to the law, so I will vote for it.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, there were a few minor additions from staff, you know. Let's see. And then anyone else want to make a comment? If not, I'll just add my final comment. Okay, I don't see a hand up, so I will just, I'll say, yes, I also support this. I think it's a good idea. You know, in the past, I would have, you know, liked the stricter regulations, but we do have a housing crisis. And in particular, I mean, you know, the fact that, you know, as Commissioner Haymeyer mentioned, you know, there are new companies that are helping enable people make ADUs much more easily than they would have been able to do in the past, you know, responding to this crisis with a good solution. And so, I mean, you know, keeping up with the technology to help solve the problem is always a good thing. So I'm supportive of that. I also, you know, before SB 330 was passed, I would have wondered about, you know, putting ADUs in multifamily units. But it makes sense to me now that, you know, Planner Whitehill has, you know, expressed that some of the older complexes are moving to do this because, you know, they usually have a lot more open space than is normally required for the newer complexes. And since SB 330 is enabling many cities to retain its naturally affordable housing, this is a way to add housing stock while still retaining the naturally affordable housing that was enabled through SB 330. So I'm in favor of it too. And also thank the staff for, you know, the additional ideas beyond the state regulation that help enable more housing. So with that, I believe Commissioner Haymeyer has a motion to make.
Great. I move that the Environmental Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending City Council approve the zoning text amendments to Chapter 36 of the zoning ordinance of the City Code to update accessory dwelling unit regulations to align with the new state regulations, to be read in title only, further reading waived, Exhibit 1 to the EPC staff report.
Okay, is there a second? I see Commissioner Capriles.
I second the motion.
Okay, Sarush, could you do a roll call vote for us?
Yes, I can. Commissioner Capriles.
Aye.
Commissioner Haymeyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Lowe.
Aye.
Commissioner Schmeezing.
Aye.
Commissioner Yin is absent. Vice Chair Cranston.
Aye.
Chair Cox.
Aye.
Okay. That is motion carried with a vote of 6 votes in favor, with Commissioner Yin absent.
Okay, thank you, Sarush. All right, then I will close item 5.1 and we will move on to item 5.2, School Strategy Precise Plan Amendments. I believe there is a staff presentation from Principal Planner Eric Anderson and Community Development Director Artie Srivastava.
Thank you very much. Sure. And if you'll give me just 1 second, I will get my presentation up. There we go. And we can see it?
Yes.
Great. So thanks again, Chair Cox and Commission. As Chair Cox said, this is the citywide school strategy, precise plan amendments. My name is Eric Anderson, and I'm accompanied by the Community Development Director, Artie Srivastava. So the school strategy was a project, the citywide school strategy was a project that we worked on with the school districts over the last several years. The goal of the citywide school strategy was to bring together school districts, developers, and the city to identify opportunities to reduce long-term costs to the school districts for the creation of new school facilities, to identify and acknowledge a school share for those long-term costs, and to create a shared understanding of the funding gap that remains, which can inform voluntary developer contributions at a citywide level or in specific precise plans. All of this analysis was based on school districts' growth assumptions and identified needs. And so the goal here was to eliminate disagreement between developers and the school districts about how much the school districts actually needed in the long term. A little bit of background, as was explained in the staff report, state law is fairly clear on this, that the city cannot make any land use decisions regarding schools. So we cannot condition development about the provision of school funds, and we cannot deny projects for not providing school funds. So as a result of this finding, we had a council meeting on June 23rd, adopted a council policy which identified ways that the city can help reduce those long-term costs for schools, including shared open space, opportunities for transfers of development rights, and some incentives for developer dedication. Also provided a final analysis for the projected need for schools over the next several decades and 20-some thousand units, along with a funding gap analysis that can inform voluntary contributions from developers. And of course, a pledge of ongoing city support and several ways that we can provide that support. Also, as a result of this council meeting, council directed staff to go back to the precise plans and refine them in light of this citywide school strategy. We are removing the school strategy, the individual developer school strategy requirements. We're removing direct community benefits, since that would be a condition of approval on development, that they provide that to schools. We are removing the overlap between the citywide school strategy and the language in the individual precise plans. We are, however, preserving the allowance for transfer of development rights into the East Wisman precise plan, because that is the mechanism by which you can go over the allowed FAR. So the Sequa findings for this, the EIRs that we did for the East Wisman and North Bayshore precise plans did not include specific new facilities in either the analysis or as mitigations or responses to impacts we could not have under state law, and we did not. So there are no new unidentified impacts from those EIRs. So this action would be Sequa exempt. So our recommendation is here on the screen, and we are happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Let's bring this back now to the commission for questions. Yeah, there we go. I can see the hands now. So if any commissioner has a question, I see the commissioner again is joining us. All right, Commissioner Haymeyer, would you like to start?
Just a question to staff. Is anyone from the school district presenting tonight? I know that we have someone as part of the public comment, or will we take that separately?
They are not applicants in this, so they are not presenting.
Okay. Commissioner Lowe.
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions for the staff. In reading the school district's input letter, I am sensing that there are some concerns from them, that the new language doesn't have a tie-in with the citywide school strategy, because all the school-related language are being proposed to be removed from the two precise plans. So I guess it's not clear to me in the new proposed process what would trigger a conversation about school fundings. Because in the current precise plans, when a new project comes into the review process, a local school strategy piece will occur, and an agreement will have to be in place before construction can start. So with the proposed removal of the local school strategy, what is the onus completely on the school district to bring that school funding discussion to the city? How is that going to take place? I guess I'm not very clear on that.
Well, so the city cannot take part in a funding conversation for schools associated with developers. So that process cannot be initiated or supported by the city, outside of kind of general discussions that we might have and general support that we might have for the school districts. So as soon as it applies to a specific development, the city can't advocate for that in any way. So certainly there are developers out there who recognize that the amount of growth that we need is significant, and the amount of growth that is being planned for is significant. They recognize the political issue, and they recognize that, especially in these areas like North Bayshore, there may be a marketing value to having a school near their residences. So all of those things can kind of help spur an applicant to reach out to the school districts, independent of the development review process.
And if they don't?
If they don't, then, as I said, the city cannot put any conditions on that development and cannot deny the development because they don't.
If I may just add another piece to this, I think when Eric and I were working on this together, we realized that the city could actually play a pretty significant role in helping with the land strategy, as was done with the Los Altos School District in the San Antonio area. And so what the council has adopted is a commitment to that strategy to allow, to give, as you know, land is expensive, and it's very hard for school districts to purchase land, but allowing them to sell development rights on that land gives them an additional, source of money to pay for that land. And the council, as part of the policy, has committed to doing that. So that takes part of approximately, is that 40% of the cost, Eric, we estimated?
Yeah, it's between 30 and 40%.
Yeah, so that, and so that takes a bit of the burden off. And the other piece was to incentivize those developers who were interested in contributing land. So they wouldn't be penalized for that. They'd be allowed to build whatever they could have built on that land elsewhere on their property, and incentivizing that. So those are two actual tangible actions the city can take. And those are part of the city's school strategy to be able to share in that funding requirement. Beyond that, I think the role that the city played was to bring a little bit of what we call shared information, because there were a lot of discussions and different kinds of thinking about student generation rates and a whole lot of other information. So we brought all these together and created that shared information. And what you see as that funding gap is basically based on that shared information. So we wouldn't have sort of a back and forth, even if a developer or applicant did want to contribute, that information was clearly presented to them. So that was about as far as we could go, as we're being told legally. And so we're trying to do our best as a city to help with the funding strategy by taking sort of the land strategy portion of it, and creating an incentive to donate land. So it's a three-pronged strategy, as you said, as Eric said. The city helps with the piece, we identify the funding gap, and then we recognize that the school districts have some resources they can bring to bear.
So the funding gap calculation, is that going to be updated from time to time?
Yes, I think we have agreed to confer and meet and go over any changes as the school districts might shift and change their plans. As we work with them on, land strategies, I know we'll learn more. So yes, that is expected to be updated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lowe. Commissioner Schmeezing.
As a bit of a follow-up to Commissioner Lowe's question, and then also the letter we received from the school district questioning why the language on school strategy was removed from the 2 precise plans. Is it, to your point, Eric, was that language removed because that would be, in a way, the city getting involved in like specific requirements for developers around the school strategy, so it had to be removed?
Yes, exactly. So that's the one part of why it had to be removed. And then the other part is, of course, just long-term information management. You don't want to have, repeated information where it might be changed in one place and then it might not apply, in the way intended when it's changed in one place but not the other. You have one resource for that information.
Okay, thank you. And then question from the staff presentation, it talked about council policy looking at shared open space, TDR, and then incentives for dedication. And I was wondering if you could expand a little bit more on the incentives for dedication, because staff presenting to the EPC and then presenting to council, who then votes, right? What are the restrictions on council in looking at the school strategy in conjunction with the development proposal? It seems clear that staff cannot do that, but how does that play in with council and the incentives for dedication?
Sure. So how that would work is obviously the developer would have to be voluntarily dedicating, and so moving forward an application that includes that. But the city council and the EPC in their recommending role can use the flexibility inherent in the planned community permit process and the precise plan process, as well as the council policy, to allow, for example, a developer to concentrate more of their allowed FAR on a smaller land area. And so they may need height exceptions or they may need setback exceptions. And so what that does is it allows the developer to provide this resource for the school districts in a way that doesn't, may hurt them a little bit, but hurts them a lot less in terms of the overall value.
I think that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schmeezing. Vice Chair Cranston.
Okay.
There you are.
A couple questions first for I guess Artie and Nicole. It's very different than what I was accustomed to before moving to California, but correct me if I'm wrong. I am of the impression that in the state of California, school districts actually have as much, and in some cases, if not more, ability to secure funding sources through direct taxation, land fees, than even cities do, and that they are independent structures within the state of California, and they don't report to the city government in any way. Is that accurate?
I'll start, and Nicole, you can fill in. Having worked in a different state, I can tell you yes. I did work previously in a different state where the city and the city was responsible for the schools. Over here, the school districts are separate from the cities. They do have the ability to, based on their program, charge impact fees. But as they will tell you, and that's the truth, they're severely limited in their ability to charge what it actually costs to build. Some of this the state supplements with matching funding, but funding is hard to get, and the state consistently goes up and down based on its, based on the economy. And it's very clear, having talked to a number of school districts, that is a big hole that it's going to be harder to fill. But that question can maybe answered by one of the school district representatives. But having worked in a few cities where we've been trying to help with our hands tied, that's essentially what we've been hearing.
Anything to add, Nicole, or is that?
Nope, nothing to add.
The only one piece I'd add, which is different in the state of California from other states, is that there's actually a law that prevents cities from using their land use abilities to extract any more from developers for schools if the developers pay the impact fees that the schools can charge. And that's precisely where we're having to separate the land use documents from those requirements. And that's, my understanding is it's unique to California. I don't know, there may be other states, but it's not typical.
Okay. Then I guess with that in mind, I went through Dr. Meyer and Dr. Rudolph's markup in its entirety. One of the things that they include in several places, and I don't know if Eric has a way to pull it up, but they suggest replacements of some language with the statement that says, review and report to the city all actions taken pursuant to the citywide school strategy. So it's not requiring them to, my question is, in part, I'm going to tell you a little bit of what I'm thinking. I was a little comfortable with the eradication of the schools entirely from the plans. It felt almost like it was too disconnected. So I'm intrigued by this idea of some method of through the process that they have to at least report back that they're looking at the citywide school strategy in the development process. Does that language go too far into what Eric was talking about earlier about us taking that into consideration as we review these things? Is that language innocuous enough to include without crossing that line into the area that you're trying to eliminate in this document?
Having just received the letter this afternoon, I don't think I'm prepared to say one way or another about how innocuous it is, or whether it's how well it fits with the language of state law. So, yeah, I guess I'll put it there.
I would agree, and I think it's something that we might have to look at in order to tell you one way or the other. But I could assure you that I think the goal of this is to have the city work with the school districts on many different levels, and we are. The city manager's office is working on other initiatives with the school district. So we have many other venues, and the idea really was to separate the land use documents from these initiatives and make it very clear that not cloud the land use process with it. But the city continues to be committed, and there are many initiatives that are outside of this precise plans also. So I don't think that commitment goes away either way.
Right, and I would just add that it does help to have a barrier, if you will, in the public record, so that it does not appear that when council approves projects or denies projects, that it's on the basis of something that's in that application that has to do with how they dealt with the schools. But that's the furthest that I think I can say right now.
Yeah, and I think we have talked about this, that we have been told there needs to be a bright line between the land use that the Planning Commission and the council does, and anything the city might want to do outside of the land use strategy. So that's essentially why those precise plan documents were revised to do that. But of course, as you know, if there are folks who are willing to donate land, those decisions will come to you and the council to look at, options to locate the project somewhere else. And the school strategy that was adopted by the council will allow us to look at those. So they're going to be in two separate locations. The very reason that we can't use schools as a reason to approve or deny projects.
Okay. Do you have more questions, Vice Chair Cranston?
I guess then a corollary to that, it wasn't apparent to me in my read through of the markup that there was any place that we add back into either precise plan that says, yo, we have a citywide school strategy, you need to be aware of it and look at it. Okay? That was, my impression was that every reference to school was removed, and the fact that there was no even mention that, hey, we have a strategy that you need to at least go be aware of was removed completely. And did I miss that? Was there any addition at all that says, hey, it may not say this is what you have to do, but at least one exists, go look at it? Was that added someplace?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, I'll hold my for discussion.
Okay. Commissioner, thank you. Commissioner Capriles.
I just wanted to ask, because we had the whole partnering with the Los Altos School District about the school that they're building over on the corner of California and Showers, was there anything in that whole process that we could learn from and find a way to add that comment into this particular legislation that we could make it a little more clear, because it's still very confusing for me to really understand where the schools are totally responsible, and then the city will jump in, and if it's done project by project, then is there a way that we could be a little bit more clear? Because I'm finding it a bit more, well, let's say just lacking, that it's not that clear on how it would work. And when you bring in the idea of, well, we'll build a school in North Bayshore, for example, well, nobody lives out there, so the schools don't have any way to put up a bond or getting any funding from that. So that's kind of what I would be looking for, is to get that point of clarity included in this, so it isn't quite so confusing. So that might be where the disconnect might be. Any comments from any of you? Am I just off base here?
If your thought was to look at ways to help school districts purchase land, I think the San Antonio Center is a great example of that. The precise plan itself doesn't have any language, right? But the school, we have now adopted language in the school strategy that would allow us, and that the council has committed to repeat that exercise anywhere in the city, which is exactly what you were talking about, Commissioner Capriles. What it did in that case was, obviously they didn't have money to purchase the 10 or 12 acres, and so they're selling the development rights from that acreage, paying a certain percentage of it, and using the money from selling the development rights to purchase the rest of it. In addition, the city has bought 2 acres worth of property there. And so we've been able to increase the area so that we can have shared open space. So that's exactly what is in the policy that the council adopted. And so we wouldn't see it on a precise plan basis. It lives outside the land use, outside the precise plan, but we could apply it anywhere, and not just in one precise plan or the other. We could apply it to any part of the city. In fact, we're even looking at one site with the high school district to see what options we have. So that commitment stays. It just doesn't live in the precise plan. It lives in the strategy that the council adopted.
Okay, because I just remember in that particular precise plan, we did have a desire that we wanted to put a school in that area, and how we would do it was not, it was generally, that's what we wanted to do. So I just wanted to make sure that we had some clarification around that, and I know the details are, go a little bit below the precise plan, but it was my thought that we could use that kind of as an example to try to come up with some sort of verbiage that would at least indicate cooperation between the school district and the city, but not, tie it so closely.
Yeah, and we've basically taken that example and sort of memorialized it in the school strategy, so we could replicate it anywhere in the city.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Capriles. Are there other commissioners that have questions? All right, I have a few. So I'm trying to make sure that I understand the timeline here, right? Because when we wrote up the East Wisconsin Precise Plan and the North Bayshore Precise Plan, we did put reference to the schools there, but now we're saying that it's better not to have that in those documents. Was it that there was some specific state legislation that happened in the interim that is causing us to make the change now, or is it just a sense of a general situation that exists in the state, or what is the thing that's changed between then and now?
I think part of it is just kind of evolving sense of risk. Nothing's happened at the state level, but I think what to provide a little bit of backstory here, when the North Bayshore Precise Plan was adopted with this school language, the intention really was that the city would stay at arm's length, and that it would just be an agreement between developer and school district. And that is how the city would stay kind of, like I said, at arm's length and consistent with the state law. However, we found with the project that went through, the Pear Avenue project that went through, that the city really did have to get involved and had to kind of take this mediator role. And so the more that mediator role evolved, the more we found that we couldn't both take the mediator role on a development by development basis and stay on the right side of the state law.
Okay. So let me also ask then, with respect to the citywide school strategy, it does sound that even though you're less comfortable leaving language in the precise plan documents about the school strategy, you have confidence that there is no question of legality of even having a school-wide strategy. I mean, are you confident that it's okay to have a school strategy from the legal point of view?
Yes, it's completely legal to have the school strategy, because the school strategy consists of the city working with the school district to help them purchase land, and the city using parkland fees where appropriate to supplement land that's entirely in the city's purview.
Okay. Okay. So it's about what the city wants to do to help. Okay. It's not about asking a developer.
That's right.
Their money.
That was the part that we could not take. And so we've agreed to provide this shared information as a resource for people if they choose to, when they voluntarily provide the funds. Okay. But that's not part of the school strategy to require that.
Okay. So I wrote in a question, and I had asked about our neighboring cities, are they using these kind of strategies to help enable their school systems, buy more property? And the answer I got back was they're not. And in particular, maybe I'm I'm not as surprised that that might be true with Los Altos and Palo Alto, but Sunnyvale is a city that's, I mean, twice our size and has also seen considerable residential growth over the last 5 years or so. So why is it that they haven't also adopted a strategy like this?
I've talked to the directors of the cities of Santa Clara and Sunnyvale, and the director in Sunnyvale cited the law as a reason why the city doesn't get involved at all in the land use strategy, and so did the Santa Clara director.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Last chance for questions here, commissioners, before I give the public a chance to weigh in on this item. All right, not seeing any other hands raised, we will take this over for public comment. Would any member of the public on the line like to provide comment on this item? If so, please click the raise hand button on Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves with *6. And the EPC clerk will start the timer and let you know when your time is up. Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak to us on this item?
Yes, Chair Cox, it looks like we do have one of the attendees, actually two right now, who wish to speak. The first one whose hand I saw raised was an Allende Rudolph. And so I am just going to take a moment here to configure the timer, and then we'll get them going. Just a minute here while I get it all set up. Commissioner Cox, do you mind telling me what you see as my screen share at the moment? You are muted, Chair Cox.
There we go. Okay. I see a bunch of buttons, and okay, now I'm starting to see something that looks like on the left, an agenda for tonight. And I see a timer up in the corner in a box. And that's what I see. I don't see anything else.
Okay, I can. I'm going to continue to try to shrink the screen that's being shared to just be the timer. It was working at the beginning of this.
It's a very, very small print.
Okay.
I have to get my reading glasses out.
Okay. So you're not able to see sort of the timer?
If I look really close, I can see probably in 5-point font, a 3.0 or something like that.
Okay. I'm going to try one more time.
Okay, there now across the top, I see a 3.0, that's pretty clear, and a 1.30, and oops, it's gone. Now I see blue sky. All right, now I see a 3.0 and a 1.30. And now I see the blue sky. Yeah. Okay, speaker timer, I see. Yeah, now I see the 3.00 under the speaker timer. So that's large enough, I think, for most people to see.
Okay. Do you think it's worth it to make it just a little bit larger if possible, or?
That'll work.
Okay.
I think it's good. Let's just go with it.
Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm ready, and I'm in a moment here. I'm just going to go ahead and allow Ayinde to talk.
It's gone. Yeah, we can't see it anymore.
Just a minute. I have to go out of that view to be able to activate our. There we go.
There it is. Yes.
Okay.
Now
And I believe I have allowed Ayinde Rudolph to speak, and I'll start the timer now. Ayinde, go ahead.
All right. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right. So good evening, commissioners. Good evening, Artie, Eric, city staff. Thank you for allowing me to talk today. I just want to point out one point before I say my piece for this. Unlike Sunnyvale, Mountain View has a redevelopment district where I'm not advocating for its removal. That does mean that all development and all the property taxes from new development goes directly to the school district, whereas the redevelopment district in North Bayshore actually goes directly to the city, and then there's a JPA that serves as the agreement. I think that's a fundamental difference between the two cities. But I do want to say that the precise plan sets a vision for the community. It does not, in every instance, mandate action. Removal of the importance of any notion of schools eliminates the needs for any developer to focus on it. Case in point, several recent proposals that have received approval from large combinations with over $2 billion in assets have moved forward without any conversation between the school district and a developer. Instead, those developers simply met with the city to determine what needs need to be met and had their projects approved. Contrast this to before the revision of the North Bayshore Precise Plan. Developers, even without language, reached out to both school districts to address concerns from the proposed total number of students. Removal of the importance of schools completely signals to developers that schools are not important. In fact, it specified the language only needs to specify that what must be done is that there is some type of conversation between the schools as opposed to simply reaching out to the city, directly to the city. We require our developers to meet with our communities, with all stakeholders to address the concerns and to report out how they plan to address those. That same expectation should be afforded to school districts moving forward. This is not about the actual strategy, but it is about the removal of the language discourages or encourages developers to move forward without ever talking to the school district at all. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a second speaker, right?
Yes, we do. I see Tamara Wilson. Also, I'm going to let Tamara speak now. Go ahead, Tamara.
Got it. Now can you hear me? Sorry about that.
We can hear you now.
My new Zoom talent is to speak without being unmuted. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chair Cox, Vice Chair Cranston, and commissioners of the Environmental Planning Commission and members of city staff. My name is Tamara Wilson. I'm the board president of the Mountain View Wistman School District Board of Trustees. I first want to thank you all for the work you do on behalf of our community and its residents. and for your continued pursuit of making Mountain View a better place to live and to build whole communities in all corners of the city. The draft resolution before you takes out all mention of schools and school strategy, which is deeply disheartening to our district. We understand the rationale and legal reasoning behind city staff making these significant changes to the document, but do hope you consider the joint letter sent to you today on behalf of the Mountain View Wisconsin School District and the Mountain View Los Altos High School District, which includes edited suggestion from our legal team. We believe our suggested modifications best reflect the shared vision between Mountain View's two school districts and city leadership. While MVLA and Mountain View Wisconsin School District understand the legal restrictions on requiring developers to support schools beyond the insufficient statutory fee, we also understand that there is no such restriction on continuing to emphasize and encourage developers to provide more, and to do so in all development documents. Professional demographic projections from approved projects to date point to the need for 2 to 3 elementary schools, a possible middle school, as well as a high school, at the sum total of an astonishing $1.1 billion, which is an estimated cost of both construction and land in today's dollars. I'm asking you today to limit and modify the suggested changes per the joint letter you received as complete removal of nearly all references to school strategy needs in both the East Wisconsin and North Bayshore precise plans. It signals really that the city is de-emphasizing their very unstated support for schools in our community. We and my board know that is not the city's position, and we also know that the city supports our schools. Their support is steadfast, as we've had multiple joint closed session meetings between MVLA, MVWSD, and city council staff and our 3 elected bodies. So I'd just like to sincerely thank you for listening and for your staff's work and for consideration of codifying a strong school strategy in support of all new development in our community. This could ensure appropriate school capacity to support the expected population growth and to build complete whole communities such as the ones that exist in Mountain View today. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other speakers?
Chair Cox, I did not see any other speakers raise their hands.
Okay, well, let's thank the representatives from the schools for coming here and speaking to us today, and then bring the item back to the commission for deliberation and action. Are there comments from the commissioners? Let me move and go back to the panelists here. Please raise your hand if you have a comment. All right, Commissioner Lowe.
I was concerned to hear from Dr. Rudolph that the developers did not go and talk to the school district after, I guess, I actually didn't exactly get the timeline of that, whether that was after the passing of the citywide school strategy or not. But if that affected the developers' behaviors, it is concerning. And I would love to figure out a way to make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay. Commissioner Smeezing. Or you still have more to say, Commissioner Lowe? Okay, Commissioner Smeezing?
Chair Cox, I apologize to interject, but I'm not sure if Allende Rudolph, they still have their hand raised in the attendees box. I'm not sure if they had something additional to say. Actually, just upon myself saying that they lowered their hand. So I just want to make sure if they had anything to say, they had before. So go ahead.
Okay. I'm assuming that it's okay for members of the commission to ask them questions. Is that true? If we want to? Nicole or Eric?
Yeah, you can ask them questions if they're willing to respond.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see, Commissioner Smeezing.
Like Commissioner Lowe, I was disheartened to hear that developers had not reached out to the school as a stakeholder in their development. I wanted to revisit what Vice Chair Cranston had brought up. I unfortunately did not have time between work and the meeting to read through the document, all of the documents the school district sent over, but I certainly think if legal, at least a reference or mention to the school strategy document in the precise plans would be something to at least point developers, okay, here is a resource. Here's, something to consider as you put together your development plans. Again, defer to city staff if that would kind of cross any boundaries or anything, but I think certainly that reference would be important. Yeah, and certainly think that schools should be a critical stakeholder as we consider development for our city.
Commissioner Yen?
Hi, thank you. Yes, I'm going to voice similar concerns. I was wondering if staff could answer whether or not the school strategy, that document, is it enough to ensure that districts are part of the conversation early on in the process? Like, I understand the reasoning legally and the need for flexibility in doing the TDRs to remove the land use from the school strategy, but is there a way to strengthen language elsewhere then, like in the school strategy or the document it is, to ensure that districts are part of the conversation from the get-go, and so that they can't be left out because the developer chooses not to? It just feels like it's odd that it would be an option. And I know that the staff wants to ensure that we have great schools and they're doing their part. I just want to make sure that outside of intent, that the process is there by language that ensures that we get the great schools. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll just start by saying that the policy itself doesn't put any mandate on developers to reach out to the districts. I think any kind of mandate like that, reaching out to the districts, having a conversation with them, we could maybe talk about that, but certainly any kind of mandate for action by the developer as a condition of approval, I think would be, we would not be able to include either in the precise plans or the citywide school strategy.
Okay,
I wanted to add that if we had a reference to the citywide school strategy, it only outlines the city's role, and so we could only reference the city's role in looking at TDRs, and so we could say that, but that's it. We cannot require developers, and that's really, I think that's really what everyone's struggling with, including staff.
Yeah.
The city cannot require developers to, but again, we are pointing them there. I think, I'm not sure about the development specifically, but I believe. And this is where the city has to be very careful about housing developments, right? That we are compelled by state law to be very methodical, very very careful about how we make our findings for housing developments. We can't base it on what they pay or don't pay above the school impact fees. We did share the funding requirements with the two projects that I believe Dr. Rudolph did discuss, and their discussion at council was economic feasibility, and they've done and gone as far as they possibly could to provide as much as possible, but that economic feasibility didn't allow them to go further. And so again, the city is trying to bridge this gap by trying to connect the information to the developer. But I think it's not possible for us to require things. And the very point about creating the shared understanding was to help developers have that common understanding, so they didn't have to have a project by project discussion with the school district. So we shared the information and said, this is the gap, this is the range that's identified. It would be good if you could provide a contribution. Each of those projects did, but when they came to council, they said, we have done as much as we can, but we would not be able to build. It wouldn't be economically feasible. So I just wanted to sort of explain how the process works.
Okay. Commissioner Haymeyer.
Oh, thank you. I think there were several others before me, so I don't want to.
Oh, okay. Well, then Commissioner Capriles then.
Okay, I don't have a lot to comment on. It seems like we're looking at some verbiage that would at least encourage or recommend the developers to have a conversation with the school districts. And it seems like there've been some suggestions. So what I was hearing from staff is they may need some time to look at what was asked and see what else they could come up with. So just a question to staff and legal as well, is that something that we can incorporate into the recommendation when we send that to council, so we don't lose sight of this conversation?
I just wanted to chime in, Nicole, feel free. Having looked at this, we cannot have any language that requires developers to go meet with school districts. The school strategy does not have that language either, for that very reason. The school strategy has actions that the city can take on its own. And the only reference we could have there is where we say transfer of development rights consistent with the school strategy. But then again, those are actions the city can take. There is nothing the city can do in this document to require developers to go meet, to go and provide funding. So I just wanted to make that very, very clear.
Yeah,
we would have put it in the school strategy if we could have, and we couldn't.
Okay, all right. No, that helps a little bit. I just didn't want to lose sight of this conversation, and from the input we've gotten from the districts to, if there's something, some sort of nuance we can include, that would be helpful. You can't. I see you shaking your head.
We would have included that in the school strategy if we could, because that really was the policy document, and we looked at every which way, and it was very, very clear. I've done this work with another city, and I'm not hearing anything different than I heard in that city as well. So it's really consistent. But what we can do is continue being the conduit and being the bridge, and having people talk and share the information that we share with school districts about the costs and the gap. There's nothing to prevent us from trying to be the bridge, but the city cannot require.
Okay. Understand. Thank you.
Okay. I want to interject with a question here, because I think I've heard the word require about 5 or 6 times now. And what I want to know is, would it be possible to retain some language that would say that, the city encourages or recommends? The city recognizes that schools are a part of any precise plan district, and the city encourages developers who put projects forward to meet with the city and with the school board to understand or be educated about the needs as they plan their development proposals. Is that legally defensible?
I don't believe it is. We could always follow up. We we went about as far as we could in the city council policy. And if you'd like to read that, it's there and available. It recognizes a collaborative partnership, but the only partnership we can talk about is the partnership of the city with the schools and not with the developers in the schools.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you really believe that any language that, you know, whether it's a strict requirement or not, which, you know, ties the conversation of schools to the developers is going too far?
Yes, because we looked at that when we developed the school strategy. And even if we reference the school strategy, that strategy only references the city's role for that very reason.
Okay, Vice Chair Cranston?
So I understand what staff has said. With that in mind, in reviewing Exhibit 1, the EPC resolution, I guess I would prefer to see a change to what is page 6 in the resolution, 100 in the North Bay Shore Precise Plan. The changes 3.4.5 to citywide school strategy, and specifically says something like, new residential development North Bay Shore will result in additional school-age children in the area. As a result, the city of Mountain View has adopted a citywide school strategy, which is available wherever, okay? A second change would be in the definitions on page A4, which is the page 10 of the staff report, which defines, would actually put in a definition of the citywide school strategy in that language there. And then in the East Westman Precise Plan, on page 12 of the staff report, page 27 of the Precise Plan, change section 7 to refer to essentially the city has adopted a citywide school strategy, and that's part of the plan, basically referencing that in that section. And then on page 41, which is page 13 of the staff report, the same kind of language that I discussed with the North Bay Shore Precise Plan could be used here to reference the residential growth in the plan area demanding Mountain View School District, blah, blah, blah. In the response to this, the city has adopted a citywide school strategy, which can be referenced. And then finally, on the last page of the document, which is page 192, page 26 of the staff report, change the action policy to citywide school strategy. Basically, action is the city would follow through on its actions associated with the citywide school policy and whichever responsible party is associated with that. That way, the references that you've got in here that actually say, if you're going to want, bonus FAR or whatever, get removed. The specific dollars are removed from it, but it ties these two precise plans to the citywide school strategy simply by saying that the city of Mountain View's approach to this is the citywide school strategy, and it essentially codifies that document to make sure that it's there. It ties in the thing that you've talked about already, the cooperation with it through that other document, not by saying it's in the precise plan and the developers have to do it. But that's what I would like to see, at least. I'm uncomfortable with the complete removal of anything to do with the schools, and I'm proposing these 5 changes in order to basically, in these documents, say our way of addressing this is through the citywide school strategy.
Okay. Let me ask you a question, Vice Chair Cranston. So, I would like you to respond to Ms. Srivastava's comment that the citywide school strategy has nothing to do with what the developer actions are. And if that's the case, and therefore cannot motivate the developer to do anything, where do you believe the value is in referencing it in the precise plan documents?
I feel really positive about the current city council and what they do when working with the school district. That's not to say that 5 years from now we don't have a city council that says, "Bye, school district, you're on your own." And so I would like to see something in here that basically says there is a citywide school strategy. It has to exist and has to continue to exist because it's tied into our land use documents.
Okay, so I mean, it would be useful, I think, what I'm hearing you say, to have a reference to a citywide school strategy, not necessarily as a means of arm twisting a developer, to make non-voluntary contributions, but to give recognition within the precise plan documents that a citywide school strategy like the one that we have is an important part in the planning process and should be integral to it.
Yes.
Would you? Okay. Let's see. Thank you. I see Commissioner Haymeyer with her hand up.
Well, maybe one question for Vice Chair Cranston, and then I can share a couple of comments. I didn't catch all of the references that you were going through, but I thought I heard you say that the inclusion of language would only be in reference to the TDR strategy and the TDR and the school strategy. Did I miss that?
No, it just references the citywide school strategy. The TDR element is brought in through the citywide school strategy itself. It's not, we don't have to call that out separately. It points to the citywide school strategy, and that's where the TDR options that Artie and Eric have talked about come into play. It's not forced to be part of it. It's essentially included through reference.
Okay, and then maybe, I guess, before I ask some other questions, so maybe Eric and Artie, can you comment? Does that, when I originally read the staff report, I saw this very similar to the item before us about ADUs. It was about bringing the precise plans into compliance so that they're legally defensible and wouldn't be challenged. Is what Vice Chair Cranston is suggesting, would that still allow for that separation, that bright line that Artie was talking about?
I think what I'm hearing is that and again, if the Planning Commission wants to recognize that the city is committed to helping the school districts using the citywide school strategy, maybe you can give us some general direction on it instead of specific locations, and we can find a place for them if it's legally possible and bring that to the council. Because right now, we can't say for sure because we do need to do the review. If the goal is to recognize that the city has a strategy, and then we can do, for example, TDRs or incentivize donation of land, share information. Those are things we can look at. And again, Nicole, I don't know, we might need to kind of use our legal counsel to kind of help us craft that. But if we can't, we will certainly let you know. But I understand the general goal that I'm hearing.
Yeah, these are the issues. In the academic literature, we call it jurisdictional fracture. So in California, there are 3,400 independent special districts, and getting these agencies to cooperate is not easy. And so I certainly share my fellow commissioners' intent to somehow signal that to developers. I am leaning more toward the staff recommendation at present, where we remove the language and give the commission were to signal the direction that schools are an important stakeholder. I think one thing I know I've heard Commissioner Caprillis ask before, and I have as well, and I don't know if this is part of the standard development requirement, but I know that when we see residential projects, for the most part, we ask, how many students are you anticipating this project will generate? And I think that's something that's really tangible that the EPC as an advisory body can ask developers and push and make sure that the developer is aware that the commission feels that the school district is an important strategy or important stakeholder, even if we can't spell it out directly in the precise plan. And I think, I think I'll just leave it there. But I'd be curious to hear how the other commissioners react to Artie's suggestion at the general direction of finding out where, because I anticipate that right now they've only had a few hours to digest what the school district sent to them, and we would need to make sure that it's legally aligns with what the city can do. And I think fundamentally the role of a conduit and a bridge really as a convener is what we see the city doing, but as its own entity, the city can only have its strategy about what the city's going to do. So I guess that's where I stand.
Vice Chair Cranston.
Just to clarify in response to Artie's question, the two sections, the two documents, both the North Bay Shore Precise Plan and the East Wisman Precise Plan, have general sections on school policy. They have different names. In the case of North Bay Shore, it looks like it's section 3.4.5, and on the East Wisman Precise Plan, it doesn't have a number. It just happens to be on page 41. Those were the two sections that I was looking at. Simply be, hey, we have a policy. We're aware of the schools, and we have a policy, and here it is. Both documents also have a corresponding definition section, and I was proposing that those sections where it referred to the previous school strategy, that it basically, those definition sections be changed to refer to the citywide school strategy. So those were essentially the the same changes to both documents in those two corresponding sections. I was concerned that some of the language, my question earlier on the language that the school boards proposed on that we have to that we've considered and have the developer report how they've done against that strategy might cross that line that Commissioner Hairmeyer is talking about, that if we're not supposed to be requiring those things, if they tell us, hey, we're being good little boys and doing this, and then we hear that they're not, and we decide, oh, bad developer, we're not going to let you do this, and we then cross the line into what we're not supposed to be crossing a line into. So that's why I'm back. Originally, I was intrigued by that language, but from what I've heard from Marty and Eric, that seems like that might be crossing a line. So I'm at least looking for a reference, and it's those two sections. Thanks.
Okay.
So we can look at this and maybe just recognize that the city has adopted a school strategy in their commitment to and understanding that this is gonna cause some growth. We could look at that language, look to what extent we can legally put that in. What I understand, Vice Chair Cranston, is that you're not looking to add it to every section, but just see if we can have a section that references the school strategy that the council has adopted. So we can look at that and not necessarily have it in every one of the suggested areas. And we will certainly report back if we hear from our legal counsel that's going too far. But we can certainly do the legal research with relationship to the general recommendation I'm hearing.
Yeah, so I'll interject something here. I mean, I want to support what Vice Chair Cranston is saying about, not completely wiping clean from the documents any references to this school. I do believe, as he says, that there's some value in at least, mentioning the school strategy in the documents, even if it only refers to what the city's action is and what the intent of the city is to support the schools. Having the schools mentioned there at least puts it, in front of people to show that schools matter to the city. It's kind of a clue that, like, here are our values, just as when we put together like our land use general plan guidelines. These are things that matter to us. And, we then, we often reference them. But I think that, just having the language in there does have some value. I think the second thing I guess I'd like to say is that, in echoing what Commissioner Capriles had said, that, in her questions to Planning Director Anderson, that, the city had only received the documents from the school representatives just today. And so they didn't really have a chance to look through them and respond to them. So I think that it would be worthwhile that before this goes to council, that, you know, they would give it some thought, and more thought than they've had a chance to yet. And also the fact that because the school's legal team looked at this, you know, I think there could be some value of legal teams, you know, at least meeting and trying to understand, you know, I mean, whether there can be a meeting of the minds about, you know, some kind of joint legally defensible statement. So those are just my thoughts. So, you know, I guess I don't want to go directly with purely the staff recommendation, but I would like us to add some things along that line in order to, you know, because I had a couple people talk to me today, and I have reason to believe that that, you know, there's concern among people who live in my neighborhood and people in, you know, the leadership of our city that, you know, they would like to respond to what the school district has said in a way more than just to say, we don't think we can do what you want. So those are my thoughts.
Could I just make a comment?
Sure.
I think that what we're trying to do is to really tell people that the city of Mountain View does have a school strategy, and just to make people aware of it tells them in and of itself that we think that's important. And so I think that if we can find a way between Commissioner Cranston and our legal team, if there's some way that we can reference that within those precise plans, that just lets people know that the city of Mountain View values that. From the comments I heard from staff, that there are no other school strategy plans, you know, in adjacent cities. And so I think it's important that we just find a way to bring that out in the document and hopefully satisfy all the legal concerns and that sort of thing without directly saying if a project or a developer doesn't consider that, that will impact a project that they're proposing to the city. So if there's some way we can get verbiage that would be acceptable to just reference that, I think that in and of itself, to me, says that's important to us. I mean, it kind of seems to me a similar conversation we had about the housing work balance type of thing. Mm-hmm. This is like a housing school balance to me. So if you're going to build housing and bring in more students, then we need to think about that. So if we have that school strategy and the developers are aware, I think the message will be sent without we having to legally put it into land use.
Okay. So, I mean, would it be appropriate to us to at least do a show of hands of how many commissioners believe that there should be some reference to the school strategy retained in the precise plan documents?
In a way that is legally
and in a way that is legally defensible, right? I mean, you know, can I just have people put their hands up just so we can see? Is that okay? Because it's just a straw vote. We're trying to get, okay, I see 3 hands. Oh, I see people putting literal hands up too. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I see all of the commissioners supporting that idea, including myself. Yeah, I'll put my hand up, there we go. Okay. So anyway, we're looking for, and then I guess my next question is there something beyond that then that we want to put in the formal recommendation tonight? I'll look for a commissioner to suggest something at this point, if there is. Put your hand up in the Zoom and if you want to speak.
Not clear on your question.
Okay, so right now I'm thinking that we're leaning toward the staff recommendation plus a request to put some language, retain some language about the school strategy in the precise plan documents. And my question is, are we looking for something beyond that? And if there is, I want to hear something explicit. So I don't see any hands up. So maybe if I'll say going twice. Commissioner Smeezing.
I'm fairly new to this whole process, but I've been looking at the language, and it does say adopt a resolution recommending that the city council amend the precise plans, but it doesn't specify how they're going to amend the precise plans. So do we need to add in like, with reference to the citywide school strategy as legally appropriate, or is it vague enough just saying amend the precise plans, and then knowing there's that encouragement to look at ways to populate the citywide school strategy plan in as is legally appropriate. Sorry, I'm being a little bit meandering.
No, it's a good question.
No, that's good.
Is it general enough, or do we need to be more specific?
So keeping it general would be good to give us the ability to go look at it, to say if there's a way to reference the school strategy in a legally defensible manner, then you can recommend that we add that language that if it can be in a legally defensive manner.
And just to add into to what Archie was saying, I was going to say something along similar lines, but yes, so then it could be just kind of further direction to staff to kind of look into that further. And as Archie said, generally reference if it can be done or appropriate to do so in a legally defensible manner, and just provide that additional recommendation and direction, basically, is one way of doing that.
Okay. So I put adopt a resolution recommending that the city council amend the Bayshore and East Westwind precise plans with reference to the citywide school strategy as appropriate to do so in a legally defensible manner, consistent with the citywide school strategy, to be read in title only. Further reading waived. Does that make sense?
So the way the staff's recommendation is actually written, it actually refers to the precise title of the resolution that's attached as Exhibit 1, which is the resolution that then has the attachments amending the precise plans. So if you're trying to incorporate kind of what I was just setting forth with the direction of, and kind of that further for staff to review and incorporate, as legally defensible verbiage to give reference to the citywide school strategy, then I would suggest, you could do the staff's recommendation as written, and then just in addition provide that further. Okay.
Okay. So we can try this again.
I think Allie's making a motion.
She is, but does she need to read it over again, or is it understood what the motion is she's making?
If you can read that, the recommendation from item 5.2 it's either going to be on the agenda, or if you have in front of you on the report as it's written.
Okay.
And then just add to that the further direction. Yep.
Okay. All right. So making a motion. I move that the Environmental Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending that the City Council amend the P39 North Bayshore and P41 East Wisman precise plans, consistent with the citywide school strategy, to be read in title only, further reading waived, Exhibit 1 to the staff report, with additional direction to reference the citywide school strategy as appropriate in a legally defensible manner.
Sounds good. Okay. Do we have a second? I see Commissioner Capriles. Are you seconding?
Yes.
Okay. All right, then I'll call the roll call. I'll ask Sarush to call the roll.
Yes. Commissioner Capriles.
Oh, and I'm sorry, just before the roll call, I'm sorry, just to clarify, because I think what was read was just slightly different. So I just want to clarify. So it's direction to reference the citywide school strategy in a legally defensible manner, if appropriate, to do so, or is that the full recommendation just to the direction from the EPC would be to do so?
I think I did say as appropriate.
Okay.
But if my fellow commissioners have a different view. Okay.
I just wanted to clarify. So as long as there was.
Yeah, well done. And I second it and I say aye.
Okay. Well, let's officially call the roll here. Sarush?
Okay. So again, Commissioner Caprillis.
Aye.
Commissioner Haymeyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Lowe.
Aye.
Commissioner Schmeezing.
Aye.
Commissioner Yin.
Aye.
Vice Chair Cranston.
Aye.
Chair Cox.
Aye.
Okay?
So, yep. So that passes 7-0.
That's perfect, yes.
All right. So thank you all. I'll close item 5.2 and we can move on to item 6. Commission, and also thank you to the representatives from the school districts that have come to speak to us tonight. We appreciate your input on these important joint issues. All right, commission, staff announcements, updates, requests, and committee reports. What do you have for us, Eric?
Thank you, Chair Cox. So we actually don't have, the next regularly scheduled meeting is October 7th, and we actually don't have anything gearing up to be heard on that date. I will confirm with a formal cancellation if it happens in the next week or so. We do have several items that are looking like they're moving forward, you know, in the subsequent meetings, October 21st and November, including several projects that I've already listed, office project on Fairchild, housing project on Fayette. We may have coming up a study session on Google's recently submitted master plan in the East Wisman area. So you may have an opportunity very soon to take a look at that. The other announcement that I wanted to highlight was that we actually missed during this meeting the award ceremony for the California American Planning Association, California Chapter American Planning Association, and East Wisman Precise Plan was awarded one of the best comprehensive plan for a small jurisdiction. So
congratulations.
Thank you all.
Congratulations.
Yeah, well done.
Well, most of you had a part to play in that, but appreciate all of your support for that. So it's a collective effort. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I'll add that this is the second award this project has received. We got a regional award, a state award, and on to the nationals, right, Eric?
Right.
There we
All
go.
right, let's go.
Wow. Go Team Mountain View.
No kidding. We're leading the way once again, Eric. Good job.
Yep. All right. So are there other commissioners that would like to share announcements or reports? I don't see any, so I guess I have some. So the first one was, I want to thank Commissioner Haymeyer and also those members of the City Council who attended our Mountain View Historical Association meeting on the history of Castro Street and what Castro Street is going through now. So so kudos back to city staff also for helping support us in that by bringing their people to help let us understand more about what's happening with the restaurants and retails in downtown right now. I wanted to remind you that on the 2 weeks from today, the Old Mountain View Neighborhood Association is sponsoring a City Council Candidate Forum on Zoom. And you know, look around, you'll find the detailed information on how to log in. If it's not that easy to find, you can write to me and I will send it to you. And let's see, what else? I think those are my main announcements. And oh, I think the other thing that's of interest is that the Mountain View Historical Association is trying to put together a special presentation in honor of the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. And the person who is working on the presentation is our former chair, Pamela Baird. So you may all want to come and attend that when we nail down the details of that, but we're looking for something in the November timeframe to correspond with Election Day. So those are my announcements. And I see Vice Chair Cranston with his hand up.
I guess just a question for Eric or someone planning. I understand that that council is looking expanding the safe parking program, and I just would be interested in if at a future meeting staff could come back and say kind of what that is, since that original program had come to us to take a look at. I'd be interested in kind of an update on how it's progressing. Thanks.
Okay, and as always, I'll put a bee back in Eric's bonnet about a possible virtual retreat for the EPC. I'm still hopeful we'll be able to do that before my term is up. Okay, is there anybody else? I see
Virtual cookie.
I'm still hopeful that Eric will give us coupons for the pizza robots. Anyway, Commissioner Yin.
Yes, I just wanted to apologize to all my fellow commissioners and to staff for being late.
Okay. We missed you. All right.
Life happens, Commissioner.
It does. All right. If there are no other comments from the commissioner or staff, I will adjourn the meeting at 9:05 p.m. until our next meeting, which may be in the month of October. See y'all.
Thank you very much.
Bye now.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Bye.